We have a food pantry, and it's interconnected, or integrated, I should say, into our Beacon Family program. So we actually need the space for the social services and working on that end, but then we do connect them to other resources. So you can't exactly have social services in a supermarket in that same way. So sometimes, it depends on the constituents, but I do think that the audience changes when you do go through neighborhood transformation or gentrification. Right now, there are a lot of faith-based institutions and organizations in the neighborhood, as well as food pantries. And I think the challenge is to be conscientious of what happens if those go away.
Yes,
Hi, so we've heard a lot about green design and active design, and it's great that we're trying to house New Yorkers and keep New Yorkers here, but we also have an increased population because New York is the hottest place to be. But you can't keep adding more people into a community and not being able to feed them. So if there are less grocery stores, if there are less community gardens. My name's Keith, I'm with City Harvest, and my work is in Brooklyn, where, as he said, a lot of our community gardens are potentially being threatened by HPD developments. We've lost 4 supermarkets, 1 came back, the other 3 we don't know what's coming back in Bed-Stuy. So is there anything around intelligent design, either through incentives or regulation or policy, that you put up a building and there should be a supermarket, you put up a building, there should be room for a community garden, you put up a building, you should be able to feed the people that not only live there, but that you've displaced and that have moved to the fringes of the community? Is there anything coming down the pipeline with the administration, or maybe the health department could speak to the health benefits of having more food in a community to influence policy?
Well, I'm going to take those as suggestions more than a question, but because it's stuff that we're doing right now, like these types of forums. Thank you, Nevin. That actually put more food into the fodder. I mean, we're able to now. I feel like I'm going to walk away with a little bit more information about the importance and how we might overlap food into our planning. But in just doing research for this, for example, I know the Fresh program, but I started reading more in preparation for this. But I feel like, and what I made a comment about was that now I can begin actually using the Fresh program in ways that we engage people. Because as I was researching, when they were developing the Fresh program, they were identifying optimal ratios of people to availability of grocery retail. And so in many neighborhoods, not all, but in many neighborhoods in New York City, it's about 15,000 square feet of grocery retail to 10,000 people. And DCP, when they were creating the Fresh program, were looking at the optimal for New York City neighborhoods should be at 30,000 square feet. And so we have a long way to go in most neighborhoods. So it really creates now a framework for me to be able to talk to people about what, starting with what the data shows is what is the ratio between grocery retail and people, and be able to say we're really deficient, and so in any future project that HPD should be funding, we want a developer to give us a proposal that actually has a food, because they're not meeting that ratio. So it's stuff like this that I feel like, the value is you're talking to people who are like so into this stuff that we want to continue pushing the envelope. So yes, it's a good idea.
Two quick replies, Ray, and then you.
So I have a kind of a 2-part question slash comment slash question. One, the discussion around housing is so myopically focused on responding to its, as it were, internal market dynamics. This is what the market will support. We can't do certain things. This is what the HPD MIH report put out. This is what the market will not support. To speak to Javier's point earlier about going upstream in terms of considering upstream considerations in terms of looking at health from a proactive perspective, not just a healthcare perspective, there's an elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is unemployment and poverty. If we took care of that, folks could afford this stuff that's going on. What's happening, they're being displaced by this stuff that's going on because we're not addressing the elephant in the room, which is unemployment and poverty. To the extent that we're doing that, you cannot. By the way, my name is Ray Figueroa, president of the New York City Community Garden Coalition. Yes, I'm joining my colleague. We're going to be at a real estate demo protest, real estate summit protesting what they're doing in Brooklyn. You cannot get rid of community gardens so long as people are rent burdened. There are communities where people are so severely rent burdened. The governor's controller's office has excellent data on this, where they're paying, oh my God, more than 50%. So you can't get rid of community gardens, because when people are rent burdened, people are food insecure. I mean, the two go together. So this really has to be a much more nuanced consideration brought to bear upon this, and we cannot defer to private real estate development lobby, which is what this mayor has done. Too much to the exclusion of really fundamental. You want to do something for the city? Let's generate jobs. Let's get a massive WPA program going, and then we can afford the housing that's coming down the pipe.
Okay, thanks for, yes.
Hi, I wanted to mention that a lot of neighborhoods don't have a lot of land left and aren't building new buildings. And I don't know if Fresh has changed, but when it first came out, there was a footprint that was pretty large. And we tried to bring a fresh food market, combining a couple five-story tenement spaces. And we ended up doing it, but we could get no incentives, and I just want to encourage, if there's any way, because you're doing so much preservation, and there's so many neighborhoods that need, maybe not a full supermarket, but a 6,000-foot fresh market, and it's a really big issue.
Okay, yes, I agree.
Thanks. So one last question. I'm mindful of the time. It's 10:35. So one last question. Quick one.
Yeah, Craig Willingham from New York City Department of Health, and Fresh has been mentioned several times over this meeting, and I'm a part of the extended Fresh team, and I just wanted to say I have copies of the Fresh 5-year report, and it answers a lot of the questions about Fresh that many people have, what Fresh does and what Fresh doesn't do. My question is, I think one of the things that we're all experiencing is that people are really looking for a kind of solid approach to address some of these issues that are going on. When I say solid, something that doesn't have anything to do with guidelines or recommendations or incentives. They want to know what's the stick versus the carrot. And I'd like for you to answer, what do you think is the capacity for an actual stick to be implemented in the political landscape that we find ourselves in today?
The stick to
The stick could be many different things. For instance, in California, they tried to ban fast food restaurants in certain areas. It wasn't effective. Similarly, they did a staple food ordinance in Minneapolis. Again, it wasn't effective, but I think those are the sorts of things that people want to see. They want to see, we stopped X from doing Y. And do you think that there's any example of that could be implemented here? If there's even an appetite for that?
It's a good question. I'm stuttering only because I typically focus on incentives.
So do I.
My background is as a developer. I'm always looking for an incentive to get more out of a site or whatever. So I don't have an answer. I'm sorry. I feel like there's what we do in incentivizing development is prevent stuff that we don't want to see. And public policy sort of creates these opportunities by creating incentives. The developers more recently may see the inclusionary housing as a stick, but it's part of our strategy for incentive. We're increasing opportunity for residential development, and they're required to build a certain percentage of affordable housing within that development. So I'm not sure we have developed a lot of sticks.
I actually think that in the zoning code itself, there is effectively a hard stop, because you can either design for restaurants that adhere to the zoning for chains, so you can only build a McDonald's or Wendy's in a certain place, so you can also not do that. So I think that's one example.
Yeah, yes, I mean, a lot of what our zoning does is prevent things from happening, but it's not a stick strategy. It's more of, these are the caps, you can only go so high, you can only have a certain amount of X on this piece of property, but We don't have sticks so much.
So that's maybe a good place to end, because I think we've raised a lot of questions, hopefully provoked a lot of thinking, and let's give the speakers a conventional. And thank you. Hope you come back next month for our next